Right there in the front row.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, it works now. I'd like to welcome you to the first town hall meeting here at Tellico Village. This will be the first of many, and based on the turnout, we're probably going to have to move them to the church next time. I tried to do it this time and couldn't get there. Couldn't get it in. They'd already had it reserved. So next time we'll be at the church, and that'll give us a little more room and a little more time. A couple things in the beginning I wanted to talk about is I'm going to have, as you've got it, most of you have gotten some form of an agenda. Basically, those are the things I'm going to talk about at the beginning and get some information out there. And then once I am done with what I have to say, which will be a very short period of time, do I need to get closer, or can you people hear me? Anybody who can't hear me in the back? Not talking loud enough, huh? I don't know how to turn it up, but we'll take your word. Is it better this way? No. Okay, just checking. All right. So when I get done with a few things that I want to talk about and information I want to give you, we'll open the floor and that'll flush out some other ideas and that sort of thing. But I wanted to set a couple rules down before we get started. Number one, please let me finish my discussion, and I will let you know when we're going to open up the floor for the forum for the town hall. Also, I would like you, if you could, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Keep your questions or your remarks to at least less than 2 minutes. And if somebody has already brought up your question, please don't come up and bring it up again. And if you've gotten an answer to your question and you have a comment or something beyond that, we want to hear it. But if you're making the same comment that the person in front of you did, please don't do that either. And it's not because I don't want to hear, it's because there's a lot of people here who would like to share their ideas or their questions or their comments, and I want everybody to have that opportunity. So that's the reasoning behind it. It's not so much to control the situation as it is to be sure everybody has a shot. Okay. So this evening I want to talk about the first thing, and I'm going to begin with a little bit of a, not sure what the word I want to use, just opening remarks, I guess. First of all, this is my 20th year at managing property. And in those 20 years, for the first time in my career, I've had to sit in a mayor's office and have a conversation. Never done that before, ever. For the first time in my career, I know who my representative is at the state level. Up until this time, I had never even met my representative in any state I've ever lived in, much less had a personal conversation with them. So I will admit to you right out of the gate, I'm learning. And so I took some missteps in this bill, and I'll give you a couple ideas about how that happened. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's the truth. That is, when I started talking about doing this, we talked about it in the board, went over it with the board, and I was advised that it'll take a couple months for this stuff to get through the state. So I said, okay, well, so if I get it up there, I've already scheduled a town hall. It'll be there about the same time I have the town hall. I can talk about it and explain it, and then it'll be there on the market, and they can make their comments and talk to the representative themselves and all those good things. Well, 2 weeks was 3 days, and it's on the docket and into the committee. And so I had no idea. That's not an excuse, by the way. I should have had an idea. I take full responsibility for that. And I take full responsibility for the fact that I didn't get out in front of you before it got out in front of them. And that was not our representative's fault. And I want to say right here and now that Lowell Russell, our representative, is one of the most kindest, honest, decent human beings I have ever met in my life. And it has nothing to do with his job. It has to do with who he is. And I would never, under any circumstances, wish to impugn his integrity or what he does for us. So if you want to be mad with somebody over all of this, he's standing in front of you. It had nothing to do with Lowell. Lowell was simply the facilitator. So please take it that way and embrace that truth, because that is the facts. A couple other things about this is we talked about the timing. I wanted y'all to know that I didn't do this in a vacuum either. I spent a lot of time talking with the board, both individually and as a group, and they were completely aware of what I was trying to accomplish and succeed. And so the board did approve this. And the one thing I want to be sure everybody understands, that you guys vote those board members in. The majority of you vote those board members in. And so when I talk to them, I am anticipating that they speak for you. And if they don't, then you need to put different board members in. That's all I can advise you on, because I'm the hired hand. And I'll say that again. Just because I have some title, I'm no more a hired hand than the guy who works on our water and sewer, or no less. Just a hired hand. And I'm trying to do my job. And as I mentioned to you in the HOA meeting, I will achieve this. I'm not expecting you to buy it now, but my goal is to achieve a level where you believe what I say to you when I say everything I do, everything. Whether it's sending out emails, writing a letter, standing in front of you right now, putting a bill before the Senate, is always in the direction of your best interest. I get nothing out of it, but it is my job. And it's my job to do the very best I can for this community, and to do those things to help them out long range as well as short range. And the reason I was hired is to actually look into the future and say, how can we protect, not just make better, but also protect our association? So the goal of this bill was to come up with a way where the homeowners themselves, all of you currently here, would not be paying into this particular portion. That anybody who wanted to buy into the community or buy property in the community would have to pay a fee to purchase that home. And it would be a part of the closing costs for that. And in that process, it was read into all kinds of other things. And I need to go on record here that we are a municipality. I have no way of ever taxing you for anything. This is a closing cost, period. Now, there are those who say, well, that's going to make me have to move the price of my home around and negotiate it. Well, the truth of the matter is you can negotiate about anything when you sell your house. Everything from closing costs to you name it. But it is a closing cost meant to be paid by the buyer, not the seller. And for you guys to negotiate on that price, to me, makes as much sense as you going to somebody and going, hey, just to sweeten the deal, I'm going to pay your first year of assessments. It has nothing to do with your home. You don't want to do that. And that makes no sense at all to you. And you all can see that, I would never do that, Chet. Why do you say that? It's the same principle here. You would never want to pay that because it's their responsibility to pay it. The point of all that is I'm trying to find ways of bringing additional funds in to fund our reserves instead of coming to you every year and saying, I want X number of dollars more to be able to cover your reserves. And you have to have reserves. And I know reserves is one of those subjects that not everybody even still gets their head around. I understand that completely. So we are going to have in one of our next meetings a discussion that will be purely on reserves. And not just about reserves in terms of the broad strokes, but why we have them, how they affect everything, where they fit in, why I need to protect you moving forward in the future, because nothing's getting cheaper. Nothing. And I'm not even talking about your assessments. I'm talking about everything around you. And so I have to prepare you for that. I have to be sure that the association is looking forward, not just happy today. I said to somebody yesterday, and they kind of looked at me strange. I said, the truth of the matter is I often wonder why I do these things, because frankly, financially, today, as I'm standing here talking to you, you're in perfect shape. You're not worried about money. In fact, I could hang out for 3 years and probably never have any problem with finances based on how things are rolling forward right now. But come year 4, come year 5, come year 6, you're going to have problems. And I'd much rather stand up here and say, really sorry I handled this badly, but this is really important to you for it to go through and for it to happen, because it will make your lives and fund things for your lives 100%. And I don't want you to walk away from that if it will benefit you. But again, it is indeed your choice. And it is your money. And our neighbors next door, this is another thing that I found was kind of interesting. All of the communities around us, Wind River, Rarity Bay, all of those, they all have this fee built in. But there is one difference in it, that you have the advantage that they don't. When that fund is collected here, it goes directly into your reserves. I'm going to say that one more time. Collected here, goes into your reserves. When they collect those fees, which happen to be more than ours, it goes into the pocket of the developer, because he's trying to recoup his money that he spent in building all the infrastructure. So when I say this is your money, I'm not being silly. This becomes your money. It's going back into the reserves. And so that's a key thing you need to kind of get your head around. And by the way, this is not something new. I'd love to convince you I'm a genius and came up with this. But everybody does this in all the communities for all the reasons we're doing it for. It's not new by any shade of the imagination. The only difference was here is that when they put together our documents, they did not account for this. The documents are silent. And the state law says that we can't change that. And so the only way I can get around both the state law and our CC&Rs is for them to legislate our ability to do that. That's the only reason why it went there, period. It has nothing to do with anything else. And for those of you who think I did this nefariously, you must think I'm a lot more clever than I really am. That's all I can say. Okay, and I kind of covered this. Why do we care about the funding? You care about the funding because the expenses of water and sewer and roads is never going away, not anytime soon. Now, I'm looking at ways that we can begin to defer those costs, but I don't have any answers for you there yet. And so that's never going to go away. So the only thing I can do is try and find ways to fund this without coming to you every single year and wanting more money, or worse, standing up here and saying, well, we need a special assessment. And I know that all of you are thinking, well, Chet, it needs 2/3 of the community to agree to an assessment. That's true. But when I can't turn back on your water and sewer because I don't have the money to fix it, do you really think 2/3 of the community is going to care? I'm serious. I mean, that's why I'm saying I don't want to do that. I'd much rather be up here taking the heat right now than standing up with you and half the community out of water and sewer and saying, I need, X number of millions of dollars, approximately 10,000 apiece from you. And that's a position that I hate to tell you I've been in before. And so I promise you I will do everything in my ability to never have to do that again. And so that's why I say I'm happy to be standing up here and taking this heat, because it's protecting you. Long term, it's protecting you. And I'd much rather stand up here and have this discussion than stand up in front of you asking for a special assessment to get the water and sewer or a road or anything else fixed so you can continue your lives. Okay. I think I've browbeat that enough. Let's talk about tenacity for a minute. And this comes under the category of one of the things I wanted to talk about in this particular meeting, was to bring you up to date on where we are and how we've come up with some things. And there's lots of discussion about costs. And so I wanted to put some of those numbers out there for you. In the process of doing the insurance, we had to go out to a builder and say, what would it cost us? Now, the insurance asked us to do this. So again, Chet's not a genius, just following the rules. They ask us to go out to a builder and say, what is it going to cost me to put Tenacity back just like it was? Not a new bill, not a new building, anything else. I actually literally handed them the plans from the original bill and said, what's it going to cost to rebuild this? And they came back and gave us a number, which we gave to the insurance company, and that was $3.9 million. So I said, okay, that's $3.9 million for 14,000 square feet. So if I extrapolate that, that comes out to approximately $287 a square foot. So I multiplied that by 22,000 square feet. And that comes out to just a little bit over $6 million. So that's within the range that I had anticipated. Now, when I say I had anticipated, we currently in our budget in the reserves have $4 million allocated to amenities. And with the $3.9 million we got from the insurance company, that would give us about $8 million. So the $6 million is just to get a building up that's 22,000 square feet. It doesn't include all the new parking lot. It doesn't include all the landscaping, all the other things. So somewhere between 6 and 8 million is what it's going to cost us to put it back at that size. So I wanted you to have that information so you can think about that. I also went to long-range planning. Actually, I didn't. Long-range planning came to me, to be more accurate, and said, we ran some numbers, and we've got an algorithm that we can look at. And they came back and said, based on usage, number of people back when it was built versus number of people back today, that 22,000 square feet actually makes sense. Now, I have to be honest with you, that was a guess on our part, but I'm happy that the numbers worked out. But that's the size that they're recommending that we use. And again, I'm trying to build to the future. There will be nothing more frustrating to me or you if we get this brand new building back and nobody can park. Or there's 25 people waiting in line to get inside to the restaurant. Now, opening day, that may be the case. But I mean, on an ongoing basis, if I understood right, Tenacity had issues with parking for quite a few years. Plus, they had a lot of issues with not enough room for all the people who want to come and go there. And then the golf community had a whole nother set of issues there. And so all of those things that you guys have been sending me, we've been putting into that process to come up with the 22,000 square feet. So that's the cost. Once we get a architect to design a couple designs for us at that level with that amount of square feet, we're going to throw them out to you and get your opinions on which style you like, which ones you like. And after today, you can give us your opinion about whether you think we're spending too much money on it or not enough money. I don't know. I don't know what your opinions are. And I can stand right here and say, even in this room, we're still not the majority of the community, but at least you're the ones who care to show up. So I'm happy to hear your opinions on this, but because at the end of the day, it's not my building, it's yours. It's the association's, and it's for you to use and enjoy, but it is my responsibility to you to build back what's going to serve you into the future, not just build back the same building that already wasn't working. So that's where we're at with Tenacity. And I know you guys are going to have questions, so hang on to them. I want to talk a little bit about, because I heard a lot of comments about selling assets and selling amenities and what we can do and we can't do and all those things. So I wanted to explain a little bit about the difference between the POA assets and the difference between the POA amenities. So when it comes to assets, you need to keep in mind that in general, the POA assets are employees, equipment, roads, water and sewer, and a few commercial buildings thrown in on the side. That's our assets. Our amenities are the building we're sitting in right now, the golf courses, the wellness center. Those are all amenities. Now, a couple gotchas in all this is one of the things that was brought up is, why don't we sell one of the golf courses? Well, first of all of you moved here for a very specific reason. And selling that golf course, number one, has two problems. We don't own it exactly because it's been built on TRDA land, and we lease that land, and until 2044, in 2044, we now own it. That's when our lease runs up and we will own that land completely. And so that's one of our problems. But the reality of it is, it doesn't matter. All of you bought here for all the reasons that we just discussed. You wanted a golf course that you could go to. And by the way, if the golf courses had problems getting tee times, more or less we're out there trying to negotiate and give tee times away just to get people onto the greens and that sort of thing, that'd be one thing. But we're backed up. There are people being turned away, and that's not outside people. That's people here. So one of the reasons I would never even consider that is it's being used. All of you are taking advantage and using those courses and those amenities. The same thing with the wellness center. I go up to the wellness center all the time. The place is packed. The parking lot is packed. I blame a lot of that on pickleball, but that's another story. Anyway, moving on. So that's those are the things that I wanted you to understand in that. And what goes along with that is the building to your future. We're not built out yet. And even since I've been here in September, we have grown significantly. And we will continue to grow significantly until we build out. And then once we've built out, there will be a constant flow of people in and out of the community. That's normal. That's what happens in all these communities of this size. So all of you are never going to get out of the fact that we grow and we change and we move and our demographics changes and goes back and forth. At one point, we're going to have people, the majority of the people here are over 75, and that's going to shift, and then the majority of the people will be under 75. But it doesn't matter. Once you've built out, I now have to find ways to fund all this, because all of us are now anticipating, well, there's another 1,000 homes that'll go in, and that's going to be a bunch more money coming in on a monthly basis. Well, that train is coming to an end. And the only way I can protect you in the future is to come up with ways to have more funds coming in. And you know, this bill is a one piece. There's 1,000 other things that we've got to find and try and do to limit that and mitigate that. Because whether you like it or not, or I like it or not, I have to live with a ceiling. There is a 5% ceiling that I can't get out of. Okay, yeah, CPI comes along, but CPI is not forever. In fact, we won't even discuss how many years it's been since CPI got over 5. So 5's my ceiling. And that doesn't mean that every year I want to hit 5. I would prefer to have our books balanced and money coming in at whatever level we need to make it realistic, not always have to be banging on the ceiling. So at the end of the day, those are my goals. I'm not telling you I'm there yet. In fact, I'm not even close to being there yet. But that is the direction I am looking, and that is exactly what I'm trying to do. And so that's what all of that is about in terms of building to the future. Also, it's important that you guys keep in mind all those amenities that we talked about. For those of you who have houses on a golf course, if you took that, or on the water, if you took that house and moved it out to the middle of Loudoun County, your $1 million home would be more like $400,000. Not because it's any less of a house, It's because of its location and what that location offers. That's why you have the values you have in your homes, is where you live and what's available to you where you live. And that's another thing that I have to defend. I can summarize my job down to one sentence: protect your investment. I can cut it far, all kind of different ways, but that's what it comes down to. Protect your investment. That's what you hired me to do. That's what the board hired me to do. That's what I'm trying to do. And my goal, and I do get it. I'm not trying to be facetious. I do understand why people are suspicious. I do understand why people think, well, what's the alternative motive he's got going on? I don't have any. Again, you guys give me credit for being a lot more creative than I really am. I don't have an ulterior motive except that my task is to take care of this community, period. And it's not about, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it other than to say, this is what I do for a living. This is what I chose to do for a living, and this is what I chose to do for y'all. Not because of some nefarious idea of what I can or can't do, but take care of y'all. All right. Oh, here's a new one. Many of you, I shouldn't say many of you, some of you may have noticed that up at the Wellness Center, there's some, looks like huge moles have dug down in the ground, and there's some dirt piled up there. Well, what's happening is we're in the process of working with Tennessee orthopedic clinics. They have offered, and we're in the process of negotiating, to build a clinic at the Wellness Center. And they'll be adding on to our Wellness Center about 6,200 square feet and building onto it and adding a clinic and some more parking spaces and those kinds of things. Now, this group has been doing a lot of wonderful things for everybody in the community just with their little dink place there in the side of the weight room. But now they're wanting to expand that and come up with it. And so before all the cash registers start ringing in your ear, they're paying for all that. That's not out of our back pocket. And in fact, what's going to happen is we're going to build it, and they're going to pay us in a lease to pay for that. Not unlike the Summit. If you understand how the Summit was set up, it was the Summit Medical Practice came to us, set up a lease agreement, we built the building, and they've been paying for that building ever since. But there will come a point where everything they pay us is money coming in. It's not to pay off that loan or pay off anything else. It's the same setup with orthopedics. The clinic itself will be paying for that in a lease agreement, and over a period of time, they will pay off that building, and everything beyond that will be ours. So in the future, there is at least the potential that they're going to want their own building, meaning a larger building somewhere on the property where they can do, for instance, this one's going to have the ability to set brakes and do x-rays and casting and all that sort of thing. But they may in the future want to actually have a satellite surgical unit out here. And so they may want to build a separate building. Well, we own the building they're in, so magically we get to expand our health center, if we choose to, into that space. It becomes ours. And it didn't cost us a dime to get there. So these are the kinds of things that we're looking at to expand the amenities, to give you more services without it costing you anything. And I wanted you to know that ahead of time. The deal's not done, so don't get excited. They haven't signed the final contract yet. But I'm telling you this ahead of time, so there's no big surprise when you start seeing people building stuff up there. And the point is to let you know what's planned, what's going on, to give you that heads up, so to speak. And let's see here. Okay, well, I've rattled on long enough. Let's get to the fun stuff. Please keep in mind the rules. I would like that everybody kind of follow them as close as they can. This is not a free-for-all. I want this to be organized and respectful, and everybody respectful of each other. And I promise you that I will answer your questions as honestly and as directly as I can. So, who's up?
Can
Gotta
you hear
use
me?
mic.
Can
Yep,
you hear
there
me
we
now?
go. Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you coming here and talking to us. My name is Harry Rucker, and I represent the Homeowners Association.
Thank you, Harry, for giving your name, because I forgot to say that.
Okay. And the subject I want to talk about is short-term rentals on that. At the last POA board meeting, the council mentioned that you're working on that.
Yes.
And my question is what is the next step, and what is the expected outcome of what you're doing with short-term rentals?
Okay, that one's, this is going to be a two-prong answer. The first answer is going to be, there's more coming on that. But let me ask you your real question. It's broken up into two issues. Number one, are we getting our rentals to follow the rules that Tennessee and all these other associations already have in place? Forget about us adding anything to it. Are they doing that? That's the first part. The second part is that even though we have rules in our blue book, I have absolutely zero teeth. I can come to you and say, hey, you can't park out here in the street. You're making a mess. What are you doing? And if they're good people, they'll take care of that. But if they're not, they can tell me to go pound sand and do whatever they want, because I have no recourse. There is nothing in our documents that allows me to do anything about that. So what we're working on now, and what I've asked our attorney to work on, is what can we do? What can we change that will at least allow us to have some teeth, whether it's have them to have a permit. Right now we have a permit, it's $50. And so if you want to lease a home in our community, it needs to cost more than $50. And we need to have the ability to pull that back if you aren't behaving. We need to have the ability that if your homeowners are parked out on the street, that we can call the police and have the car towed. All those are things that we're looking at, ways that we can manage this. It is not, and I repeat, one of the things that's going to happen before this actually becomes a rule of any kind is I'm going to have a meeting not unlike this, but I will invite every homeowner who has rentals in this community to have a discussion about it. Because this is the part I hate, and I'm being dead serious and honest with you. We're having to come up with rules for maybe 3 out of 40 people who rent. Right. And that's ridiculous, but it's true. The 40 people who rent, they're not even an issue. They've never even come up on anybody's radar because they're doing what they're supposed to do. But the 3 that aren't are now making everybody's lives miserable, and I got to come up with all these rules and teeth to enforce it, and it's kind of nuts. But I want to have that meeting. I want to have that discussion with them. I want to give them the opportunity for them to give me feedback, and then we'll figure out how we're going to move forward in an appropriate manner. But it is a problem. There are problems within the community that have kind of raised to another level, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so it's got to be addressed. But I've got to take this in steps because there are rules that already exist in the state and in the county for rentals. And we need to be sure that we're following those before we start creating our own.
Well, you have teeth in the permitting process right now. I mean, in the blue book it says you can pull the permit, and you have not issued some permits that have expired, and there's still short-term rentals there.
Sure.
So there are things you could do today.
Sure. Now here's the question. I pull that, and they go, "Oh my, you pulled my $50 license to rent." And next week they got a rental in there. So what do I do? What do I do? Have them arrested for trespassing? I mean, seriously.
You put a lien on it, that's about it, really.
I can't put a lien on it. There's nothing in my documents that allows me to put a lien on their home because they are renting out of order. We don't have a rental policy of any kind. And that's the gotcha. That's why I'm saying you're absolutely correct in all the things you just said. It's just I don't have any teeth to enforce it. Outside of I can pull their permit, but it's a $50 permit. They could care less, to be frank. So that's what I've got to change. Those are the steps that we have to take, and it's going to take a minute to do it right, because what I don't want to do is, use the shotgun effect. I really want it to be a true, this is what we need to do to fix this problem answer.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the question. It was a good one. Line forms to the rear.
Hi, I'm Teresa Reed. I'm a Tellico Village resident in Toqua. And Chet, thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you.
However, I'm going to tell you, I think there's some areas you can improve on. You stand up there and I have to. You represent us.
Yes.
This is a we situation. This is a wonderful community we all live in, and I'd like to think you want to buy in and be part of us in representing us as you make these decisions. So, one, I know you all are really driven on this reserve study. Will you post the reserve study so we can all see what's driving your train to motivate you for all these financial decisions that you're making on your POA website?
So here's the honest answer. There is a summary of the reserve study on the webpage right now. If I were to show you the entire reserve study, you would go, well, wow, this has so many mistakes in it. How could they even come up with a number? And that would be a fair statement. But here's what I am going to tell you. I've worked with communities in Hawaii, Georgia, and Florida, and I have worked in communities that didn't have reserve studies and those who did. Those who didn't have reserves set up, and those who did. Part of the reserve study is a guide. That's it. It's not the gospel. And I can give you story after story. I want to get it posted as soon as I can.
Okay,
But
well, with that said, just
Yeah.
to keep this short, because I'm sure there are a lot of people behind me, do you then, as you are doing your budget and all your financial decisions, are you doing cost analysis on all of the financial moves that you're making?
As a matter of fact, one of the things we have to do in the correction of the reserve study, and I didn't really get to finish answering you, I really want to post the reserve study. I want to show you the things that they looked at and why they looked at them. There's just errors in there that you would immediately, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out we don't own 4 boats. Just to throw that one out there. So all I'm saying is I want that there for you to do it. But for us to be able to correct it, we have to do cost analysis. We have to do those things. And so that's all part of it. And one of the reasons why reserve studies become important, and I'll throw this out really quick, is there's a bill out there that, amazingly enough, I got credit for, and I had no idea it was even there. But anyway, it's a bill out there in Tennessee that says that HOAs are going to have to do reserve studies every 5 years. And everybody was all upset about that because they think it should be every 10 years, maybe. Some people thought that. In Florida and Georgia, it's every 3 years. There's a reason for it. Prices are constantly changing. And if you are trying to prepare to do cost analysis, as you pointed out, and you aren't looking at those things, then you're going to miss that. And I can give you a perfect example. And some of you have heard this story, and it's true. I went out from a reserve study and was going to purchase 3 miles of fencing. Those fences were cost out at $3 a post. When I went out to buy them a week later, they were $11 a post. And when you're looking at that many posts for 3 miles, that's kind of a big dent in what you had in mind. So cost analysis, even with a reserve in place, is required.
Certainly. I have a list of questions, but I'll stop at one more. Back to your position and the respect that we should be paying you and the decisions that you make.
No, I
think
earned that respect. You shouldn't be giving me anything.
well, that's fair enough, but our board, who we elect to give you the direction that, or approval for the direction that you want to go.
Correct.
Votes. We need to see those votes. We need to know if something that comes to completion is a unanimous vote, or if it's a 4-3 split. We need to know that vote.
That will never change. You're always going to know the vote, but what you're really asking me is you want to know who was a part of that split.
We have to vote on those people. We have to vote for them. We want to know what their actual.
Okay, all right. I will want to remind you that it doesn't matter who voted one way or the other, but I'll show you, because at the end of the day, and this is where it's different, and I do buy into your theory of you want to know who voted which way. I get that. In a way, I do get that. But the truth of the matter is when they vote, it's done. It doesn't matter. And the example I gave, if we voted on buying a dock, and that dock was controversial, and it had issues and all those kinds of things, and let's just say it was a 3-4 vote, and they voted for it, and the dock got put in, and somebody got hurt because it wasn't put in correctly. The 4 that voted against it don't get dispensation. They're a part of the board, and the board voted yes. So there is no out for them. Now, again, back to your concerns about who voted which way, we want to understand their thinking and those kinds of things. My answer is, if you really need to know that, the board meetings are open, they're televised, and they're recorded. And I know that nobody wants, they'll say, I don't want to go back and look for that. Well, I don't know how to help you. I can have the minutes reflect who voted which way, but so you know, it won't matter at the end of the day. It'll matter for you to know, but in terms of what they voted for, it won't matter.
Yeah, Chet, but you yourself said that the board...
Hang on, guys, give her some time here.
You yourself said the board represents us.
Correct.
So we need to know who is representing us and how they're representing us. That's what you said yourself at the beginning.
I did. So we'll change that. The next board meeting minutes will reflect, if it's unanimous, it'll say unanimous. If it's not, it'll reflect who voted which way, if that makes you feel better. I don't get points for keeping anything from you. I was speaking more to the reality. Yes, ma'am.
And for the board members who are here, I would like to congratulate you because you certainly bamboozled me. After the gun debacle that we had, you said you were going to change. You learned your lesson. And I always thought that meant that you were going to be more open, more honest with us. Instead, you found a much more nefarious way to go about getting your ideas across. So congratulations. I was a real goob-moosh. There is here that's something that I don't think you, and you could maybe be excused for not having read it, but the board members I don't think could be. There is a Tellico Village Property Owners Association procedure PO18, and it's called Open Meetings for Boards of Board of Directors. And it says, the POO Board of Directors is extremely conscious of the need to be open and honest with property owners as it conducts the business of the village. It goes on about the fact we're non-profit, so we're not subject to the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, but it says, nonetheless, the POA bylaws specify that the board's meetings shall be open to all members of the POA except for discussions of personal matters and matters covering litigation contemplated, threatened, or existing. So where were the open meetings on the matter of HB 116?
Okay, so I'm going to say this one more time, since obviously the first time I said it, it wasn't clear. I made a mistake. I did not put this forward and send out the email that you all got this week a month ago, before it ever even got to the board. We were talking about it. That's on me. There is no question that that needed to be handled different, and I did not. So that's my mistake. You want, like I said, you want to be angry? I'm your guy. I'm the one who made that mistake, period.
This is not a matter of your mistake. This is a matter of a procedure by the board that was violated.
You said the board voted on it.
The board did
Yes.
vote on
So
it.
when did they vote on it?
An executive.
Yes, so that's in contravention to this procedure, that it wasn't made notified to the rest of us.
Okay, so we're going to back up a step, and I'm going to put this differently. Anybody disagree there was mistakes made? Anybody disagree? Okay, so let's cut to the chase and say mistakes were made on all sides. And whether the board did it wrong or right, that can be debated, but I'm welcome to say that we should be voting in open meetings, and I'm welcome to say that we should be doing those things in a different way. I'm taking it a step farther, and that's the part that I guess I'm still not being clear about. Before the board ever voted, I should have sent out that email that informed you of the real nature of this bill and why it was that way, and in a way that you could understand. Now, I haven't heard from everybody, but I've been told that a lot of people, and I love this statement, if we'd have gotten that letter ahead of time, it wouldn't even have been an issue. And I kind of believe that. I kind of believe that.
But just like special assessments, it needs a two-third vote.
No, sorry, doesn't. That unfortunately is not true. what she says is true, but what you just said is not true in this regard.
And anyway, and one last thing. You've been talking about having to raise costs, and you don't like having to raise costs all the time. I haven't heard one thing since we've been talking about the reserve study and the need for more money. I haven't heard one thing about cost cutting. I came from a large organization. That was the first thing we did every year when we looked at our budgets. We looked at where we could improve our processes and our procedures so things were less expensive. Our clients would not allow us. We put forward a budget. Our clients always wanted to slash it.
Sure.
And I would be much more amenable to listening to what you say about the costs if I had heard anything about how you were going to cut costs, improve the running, to make it more cost effective. Thank you.
So when we did the budget, we cut the budget by $2.3 million. Now, in the grand scheme of a $30 million budget, granted, that's not crazy money, but we did cut it. It was not just, okay, let's buy any crazy thing we want. And the board went over and hammered and cut and went after all the different departments. It's why we did the process the way we did, is each department had to come and defend their portion of the budget, and why. Now, there are those who would agree or disagree that that's still not good enough. But I need to answer the fact that nobody takes this any more seriously than I do. But I also have the reality of there's only so much I can cut before I start cutting amenities and services and the things that you're already involved with. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Thanks for making yourself available. Couple of points with regard to
Your name, sir?
Rick Sloan. I live here in the village, been here since 2016. Good afternoon, Rick. All right. Insofar as the House bill is concerned,
Yes, sir.
might I suggest a couple of carve-outs, because I haven't heard anybody talk about those kinds of things this afternoon. One of which would be for land trusts. If you're a resident in the village and you move your property into a land trust, is that taken into consideration?
There's two things taken into consideration. Let me pause right there, and I know you have more, but I'm not trying to stop you. I just want to make sure this is covered. There's two things that we intend to cover in this bill. One is what you just described. If you move it into a trust, there is a change of deed there. No, that is not going to be a part of it. And if you were to pass away and gave your children your land, there would be no cost involved in that. Kind of the same thing, but nonetheless, that's the same principle around that. Anytime we change hands of deed based on family or trust, that's not it. That's not what we're trying to put any costs on.
Okay, well, second to that, then, if you move within the village,
Yes.
I would submit to you that that ought to be exempt as well.
Well, there's a lot of people who would submit a lot of things they wish were exempt. And I don't have an answer for that yet. And the reason I don't have an answer for that is two reasons. If you read the bill, which many of you have and many of you haven't, there is a clause right down at the very bottom of it that says every year the board must vote to, number one, do it, accept it, make it part of what they're doing, and number two, set the parameters around it. So when and if the board ever has a chance to vote on this, they have to have a multiple levels of votes. Number one, are we going to do it? That's the first vote. Number two, who are we going to do this with? And that goes to your point. Are we going to charge, as an example, somebody buys a $6,000 lot? Are they going to want to pay $2,500 for a $6,000 lot? I don't know the answer to that, but those are the questions that the board has to review and come up with. And they still have the right to do nothing.
Well, then you'll really love my next one.
I like it.
I think that your $2,500 is light, not by a little, but by a lot. When we have copious numbers of people parading in here from the Californias, and you pick
Careful
the state.
now, don't pick the states. Come on, be nice.
I'll throw a dart in my own direction. I'll say Illinois. All right? Make it at least 10 grand. Make it at least 10 grand. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
You've
again,
got $400 million worth of assets in the village. All right? Those people are coming in here. They are living, or I should say, taking advantage of what you have built and paid for over time. Now, I haven't been here very long when you think in terms of the scope of everybody else that's been here for the 15 and the 20 years, and maybe in some cases more than that. But for heaven's sakes, if you're going to add to revenues without going to the ultimate increase in the assessment every month, that is a potential way of doing it.
regrettably, I can't necessarily argue your point because all of our neighbors charge way more than that.
Thank you. Point made.
However, I'm trying to ease you guys into this, not absolutely bury you. But your point is well taken.
I'm not sure that you're going to ease anybody into it, really. You are also suggesting that the new clubhouse could be in the vicinity of 6 to 8 mil.
I am suggesting
Okay.
that, yes. Well,
Now-
let me rephrase that. I am suggesting if we build it to 22,000 square feet, it will be in the $6 to $8 million.
Okay? And you say we're growing, we're growing, we're growing. Well, at 50 whatever some hundred homes and a build out supposedly at 62 or thereabouts,
Beth, is that right?
we don't have very far to
62?
go. So how much growth do we have to build for? Would be number
6,800
one.
is the number, by the way.
Okay,
Just checking.
and that includes all the ravines? I mean,
No,
you've got
no.
lots
Yeah,
that
we've
you
got
need
a lot.
mountain
We've got a
goat
lot of
to build on.
yeah, no, we're not counting all the I'm trying to find a politically the crap lot. Sorry, couldn't find one. Not doing
Bingo.
it. Yeah.
All right, and the rest of my questions are not fit for public discussion.
No worries. Have a seat. Appreciate your questions. I agreed with them too.
Hi, I'm Brian Wethington. I've been here since 2013. My question is you had brought up approaching, not you specifically, but I mean the possibility of even approaching politicians about special assessments.
No, sorry, didn't do that.
I mean, well,
this
in
is
your
not a special assessment. This
right,
is yeah.
but you said you don't want to have to do that, or you didn't.
Yeah, no, what I was getting at, and I'm sorry that if I wasn't clear, so I want to clear this up because this is one of those questions that grows into Chet wants to control the world kind of things. What I was getting at is no politician can fix the fact that you must vote to have an assessment, period, number one. Number two, I don't even want to have a discussion with you about a special assessment because in my head, and I may live to eat these words, but I haven't so far, and that is, if I have to come to you for a special assessment, either it was an act of God or I haven't done my job. Those are the only two reasons I can come up with. And so I don't want to entertain anything that has to do with legislation and special assessments because special legislation will not get in the middle of our CCNRs.
Right. Well,
period.
you can understand why I'm concerned because
Sure.
we were circumvented in the whole bill that's out there now, right?
But I can
So-
understand that, but in terms of circumvented, and again, you know, you don't have to believe me. At this point, think of me what you will because I'm just giving you the facts. It was never my intent to circumvent anybody. It was my ignorance that it turned out the way it did. And I mean, I'd love to be polite about it, but that's the best I can do.
Well, you
And
know,
so
we're-
that's not, my intent was in this meeting, the bill would have come up and I would be talking to you about it. And you guys still forgetting one minor little detail. This is Nashville. You and I can all agree today that this is the best thing since sliced bread. And it can get into that committee and that committee throw it out in the first 15 minutes and we're done. That's it. Sorry.
Because that's where 1184 is at right now, right? In committee.
It's not even at the committee. It's on hold. It's not been brought to the committee.
Okay.
And so that it actually made it to the docket, which means they just put it in the file of here's all the ones that are going to be discussed possibly.
Yeah, because they were going to send it to the Commerce Committee.
Right.
The last I read on
Right.
the website.
Right. And so at the end of the day, it hasn't gone anywhere. I have to stay within my box. Sorry here. It has to, they have not done anything with it. Lowell put it on hold because he was operating under the auspices of what I told him, what I thought it was in the best interest of the community. And not that you had all approved it, but it was in the best interest of the community. And today I stand here saying I did it wrong, but I stand by that statement. It is in the best interest of your community, and it is what's going to help you in the future, but it's not my choice.
Okay, so you have to understand where I came from. I've had a lot of politicians stand in front of me and tell me they need money
Right?
for infrastructure. 5, 10 years later, I would say more like 5, they come right back at you. Hey, we need more money for infrastructure, and our roads are still a shambles.
Could
And-
not argue with you.
And here
for a
I am in
minute.
the village,
Yep.
right down the street here, and I have so many potholes up and down my street. It's just unbelievable. So I'm like,
send
here
me
you
a
are
list. Send
asking
me
for
a
money,
yep.
raising our dues,
Right?
and
Whoa, 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 stop. Stop right there. See, this is how things get started. I didn't say raise your dues. In fact, I said the exact opposite. I don't want to touch
but whatever,
your
they
dues.
got raised regardless.
Well, the
So-
dues got raised, but I mean, and if you've got potholes on a street, I need an email. So that's my job, to be sure that that gets taken care of. But I don't want this to turn into you're trying to nefariously raise our dues. It's the exact opposite. I don't know how to say it any different.
I don't want you to think I don't mind my dues being raised if I see things being done in the community.
Sure.
It's when I don't see things being done in the community and our dues are being raised, right?
Fair enough.
That's
Absolutely
when it
fair
becomes
enough.
a problem.
Yep.
And
Nope,
that's when
that's-
people get upset.
And people should be
So-
upset, and I definitely understand your analogy, and that can't happen. If it's going to happen that way, then there's going to have to be changes,
Right.
period. Because I'm unfortunately, I'm standing on that side of the mic with you in that discussion, period.
In what is being done or planned, we need some even short-term things presented to us
Sure.
for the money that you're getting from us, okay?
Sure.
Not just the long-term stuff.
So let's talk about water and sewer while you're on that topic, because I hadn't gotten there yet. But we had a study done, and over the next 5 years, we are supposed to fix our 35-year-old infrastructure started 35 years ago. We are supposed to spend $13 million repairing that. And we've already started. We've already planned on things that we're going to do this year and next year. But that's $13 million over the next 5 years. And so I'm trying to figure out how we're going to fund that and still stay within the game. And that's a real number. That's not my idea. That's where engineers have handed it to us.
But
and
see,
hey,
that's the realistic conversation that I think all of us are looking for. Right?
sorry. Well, then you got it.
And
Because
it
that's
didn't-
exactly
it
what I
didn't
want to
come
give
off
you.
that way, right?
Yeah.
We didn't. It never was presented to us that way.
So I'm going to do better at this, I promise. And this type of meeting is how it starts.
That's right.
It isn't
Exactly.
perfect, but this is how it starts.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.
Good afternoon. My name's Jim Vreeland. I've been here about 18 years. And the way I foresee this is it's not a problem. It's a problem of spending, and it's a problem of gathering more funds. Is this bill still live or is it dead?
It's on hold, and I'll cut to the chase on that. I keep saying that so you understand. If all of you left this room and called Lowell tomorrow and said, this is the craziest thing you've ever come up with, don't do it, it's dead. That's the end of the story. And I've already told him that if he loses any political clout on this at all, to kill it. Because he's worth more to me as a human being and a person in his political career than me doing the right thing here. I would rather be happy than right.
I agree with you 100%, and I love Lowell Russell. And
Yep.
if he continues with it, he knows he's committing political suicide.
So you think it's that bad to the
I
community?
think it's that bad.
Okay.
And I know how you feel. I know how you feel that the POA is there for us, and we don't have a vote in this. We have to vote through the POA board.
Well, here's
And-
the problem. If I gave a vote for everything I did to the POA to vote on, number one of us is not necessary. Number two, 6,000 people herding cats. I'll never get a vote. Never.
Well,
and that's just an honest
You
answer.
ever
That's
heard
not
the
being
term,
sarcastic.
You ever heard the term referendum? Sometimes
Sure.
you have to put it up for a referendum and see what your public wants. The gun thing was a perfect example. You had 3 people that want something, and the rest of the people didn't.
Okay, but here's the thing with guns, and I want to take this one out of this group. The gun law, the gun whole issue was about your personal rights. It had nothing to do with the POA. It had absolutely everything to do with your personal rights. It should have never, ever been brought up. It's not even comparable to us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with bits and pieces of what all these different people said, so I really don't want to reiterate them, but I feel that you have a problem with funds, and you have a problem with funds because of the way the funds are being spent. If you want to put up a building and you need $3 million, you don't have to reach in your pocket and come out with $3 million. There's such a thing called as bonding. And municipalities and everybody in the country does this. When they have to do big expenditures, they bond them so it's spread out. It's not one hit. And there's no reason why you can't do it here. I belong to Oak Ridge Rifle and Pistol up there. They have bonds out. This is for a pistol range. They have bonds. There's no reason why a big village like this can't bond their big expenditures and spread them out. When you did, not you personally, but when this village did these roads and they put that seal coat on the roads, I made a personal trip up there and told them that will never fly, it will never last. It's crap, but plain English. They didn't care. They went ahead and did it anyway. And now that's what's disintegrating is that worthless top coat that you put on the roads. Again, if you got to resurface them, put a bond out and resurface them right. Your sewer system and your water system, they have a system now called sleeving. You don't have to go in and replace the whole line. They put a sleeve in this thing, and it redoes the whole line very cheaply compared to laying new lines down. There is many ways that we could save. How much are you people paying for a boat slip here? You think it's too much? $50 a month? That's too much? $100? You know what a boat slip costs in a marina? I had an airplane. You know what I was paying for that? $600 a month just to park it, all right? What I'm trying to say is the boat slips are too cheap here. The golf fee, well, you want to generate money or what? You want to generate money? That's where it's got to come from.
I'd like to go on record, I didn't say that.
That's right. I'm saying it for you. What's your golf fees? What's your golf fees?
Yeah, no, guy, you don't have to sell me. I understand everything you're
What's
saying.
your golf fee? $40? And it doesn't fly. And I don't know of any other places that have 3 golf courses in any other villages. So
Okay.
it's up to you people. You want to pay one way or you're going to pay another way. That's just
sure.
That's just it. Pay for your amenities, and those who use it pay for them. When I went to move here, I went to Rarity Bay. Rarity Bay wanted $30,000 for a golf membership that goes with the house. You want to pay $30,000 for a golf membership here? That's one of the reasons why I didn't go to Rarity Bay. Okay.
Okay,
That-
so we and I don't mean to cut you off because you made all your good points, but I got people behind you, brother.
Sorry.
But thank you very much for your comments.
Hello, my name is Randall. Been here for 2 years. Got a couple questions for you.
Yes.
Can
Randall,
you hear me now?
Yeah, get up on the mic.
All right. So I called Russell this morning and had a conversation with him about, the tax law and everything you guys are trying to do. He told me it's going to be squashed point blank. So my question for you, did you guys hire a lobbyist group to try to do the back door on this? Because I was told by Russell that POA sure enough did.
We hire lobbyists every single year. We don't have, that's not for this. This has nothing to do with this. We hire lobbyists to help us understand what the state's doing, because this boy don't know. And that's why we hire lobbyists to do that. But yes, lobbyists were involved. And again, I'm not sure, if Russell makes that decision, that's his choice, and I salute that and say, okay. But I'm still gonna stand here, no matter how you feel about it, and correct you on 2 things. It's not a tax. I have no ability to put a tax on you. It is a closing cost. It is a fee. And there are 1,000 people here who've all read all the different things across the internet that call it a exit tax. That was the word, exit tax. And if you're buying a new house here and you have to pay that fee, can someone explain to me what you're exiting? I just want to know, because it makes no sense to me how that got brought up or applied or anything else. So if Russell says it's dead, then it's probably going to be dead. That'll be up to the rest of you and who calls him and lets him know. I have no control over that, and I've given him I haven't given him anything. I've told him that I am completely at his whim. However he feels is best to handle it, it's his task. Do what you need to do. I'm good with it.
Second question is the reserve money. I know you had touched on that earlier. Can you tell us a little bit more about where our funds go and what we're currently paying and the future of, the 3, 4, 5 year rule that you had earlier?
So right now, and again, I would like to do this in a meeting where I can get, rather than just give you these little blurbs, is actually walk you through it step by step. But in answer to your question, this year we're trying to collect right around between $7 and $8 million to go into reserves. And as the board is already committed to, all of that particular money is going specifically for repair and maintenance. And what that means is that's going to be focused on roads and water and sewer, period. That's how all that's going. Currently, I believe we're at 16 million, but we're about to take care of a bunch of projects, hopefully potholes, and get some road work done. But that's where the money, and every year, if you go and look at our budget, every year we define where we're going to spend the reserves, and it's called the capital expense. That's where the reserves come out of, is the capital expenses. And you have the budget is divided into two areas: capital, which is reserves, and operational, which is our day-to-day stuff. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
You bet, no worries.
I'm a little guy, so I got to move the microphone. My name is Don Hart. I live in the Chota Village. We've been here about 2.5 years. First of all, this meeting proves how valuable it is when, whether it's going to be you, whether it be board members, to come and speak to us the way you have today. This has been badly needed. And so this is a great first step. I'm going to ask if you could clarify, because there have been some questions about knowing how board members vote. I'm assuming that most of them understand there are actually two meetings. There is a private meeting and a public meeting. But my question is, at what meeting is it expected that we are supposedly entitled to know how board members vote?
I believe what they're asking for, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I believe what you're asking for is when the board makes a public vote, so you don't have to go and watch the movie and figure out which one voted which way, that their names are applied to. Chet Pillsbury voted no. Well, I don't get a vote, but you get it. Chet Pillsbury voted no, and someone else voted yes. And so that will give you a way of understanding how your board members vote. Again, all I can do is keep reminding you, because, and this is why I don't disagree with you, and yet I do disagree with you. And the reason I say I don't disagree with you is I understand. I really do understand the point that you want to know how your guys are voting and who you put in office. Are they voting one way or the other? I get that. But in terms of their fiscal and financial and legal responsibilities, it doesn't matter. And that's the thing that you need, because you're looking at the individuals, and I'm telling you, you need to look at the board. That's the thing I'm trying to get across. Look at the board, because if the board votes a certain way on a consistent basis, if you don't like it, you got to change the board. Changing 2 people when there's 7 people on the board doesn't mean jack. I'm just giving you the facts. What'd I say? Yeah, it's a start. If you want to call it a start, it can be. But if those guys want to vote something different and the other 4 or 5 want to vote one way, their vote goes out the window. It doesn't help. Now, they can be a voice and it can be a start. I can't argue that point. And hopefully, and so far, I have to tell you, in dealing with the board, I don't think that would ever happen. I think if 2 people wanted to vote a certain way and they were pushing that agenda, that the rest of the board would listen. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I need you to know that in the real world, 2 people and a 7-member board member is not going to accomplish what you hope they will.
let me, if I may, let me.
Yes, please, go ahead.
One more. I'm going to go to the issue with Republic.
Sure.
I don't want to get into the details. That's not what my question is. We have all kinds of negotiations with outside providers. Those negotiations are not held in public, they're held in private, correct?
That's what you pay me to do.
All right. Why are there private meetings? I mean, I know the answer, but I want to hear the answer from you. And I think they need to hear that answer as to why negotiations are private.
Well, the negotiations are private because that's what you've asked me to do, is go out and act in your behalf. And so I guess I could have them have every negotiation for every contract held at a board meeting so you can see that. You'd be nauseated, and 3 days later when we got done, it wouldn't change the outcome. So this takes me back to one of my earlier statements. You've hired me to do a job, and you've hired me to do the best I can to do that job. Now, if you don't trust me, then I have to earn that trust. But either way, sooner or later, you either have to trust me to do the job you hired me to do, or fire me and hire somebody you can. Because ultimately, 6,000 people trying to individually run a POA is a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. And this is not me trying to skirt around being, and you guys have heard me say it, and I'll keep saying it because I believe it. Anytime people use those happy terms like full disclosure and transparency, most of the time it's because they have something to hide. And I don't want to do that. I don't want you to even have that opinion of me. That's why, if you've noticed in this conversation, I keep correcting people because there's this misinformation that keeps getting thrown out there. It's not that I'm trying to be rude. It's that I want you to understand the truth and not continue to allow the innuendo and all these other things that keep going on, keep getting spread around and around. And if you aren't willing to go out and look for those things, then part of my task is to make it as easy as I can for you to understand.
Thank you, Chet.
I won't be too long because I have a sick dog at home. So anyway, I broke it.
There you go. Well done.
Can you hear me still?
Yep.
Randy Gann, I live in Tellico Village, obviously. Now, I left a state that is run by a political party, but I won't name their D. But when they start taxing the rainfall that falls on my property, that was it for me. I had to leave.
Understood.
Now, what they try to do is they try to squeeze as much money out as you can from the people to build stuff that is not needed, such as $1.5 million park that the only people that go there are drug dealers. And this has happened in Maryland. I'll not here, because I'm very familiar. I'm a retired police officer, and I've been in that park over and over and over again because I don't see kids playing. I don't see anybody showing up to use the park. All it is drug dealing. That's
Right,
it.
right.
But they spend $1.5 million on this park, patting themselves on their back. Oh, I built this. What do you think? No. Same thing. I was here at the POA board meeting the other night. They're talking about future expenditures.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Building an office building for people who have home offices that want a bigger space. That came up in it.
Okay.
That was one
That's
of the
a new one
future
on
things.
me. I have to admit
Well,
that freely.
It
That's
was,
a new one on
It was
me.
in the meeting.
I believe it.
That, to me, is like the rain tax in Maryland.
So we don't.
So basically what you're doing is you need to look at what you're spending stuff on
Yep.
before you, and you know what? Politicians, don't matter whether they're board or whether they're in Knoxville or wherever, they're supposed to represent us,
Absolutely.
okay? Which means I know Laura Russell. He and I are retired police. I know him very well. And when I talked to him, he said he was under the impression that everybody was for this bill, That's not the case. And when we talked about it,
Yeah.
that was not what he was told.
What he was told was, and I'm the one who told him,
Exactly,
that
I
this
know.
is in the
We
best
spoke about
interest
it.
of the
You don't have to
community.
repeat
Yep,
yourself.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, I'll be done here shortly, but anyway, the long story is, if you're gonna spend money, you should ask, the board should ask us, reach out to their constituents. That wasn't done. Same thing with the gun thing. Nobody reached out to us. We had to come to a board meeting here where they brought the sheriffs upstairs because they were afraid everybody's gonna crash the place, and I sat down here watching it on a video. But the thing is, nobody says anything to us about it. They go ahead and act before they ask us. And that's the last thing I have to say. I'm
No
done.
worries.
Thank you.
Bob Tiernan, Tellico Village.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your first.
Bob Tiernan.
Bob, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
The reason we're here is because we're supposed to be talking about HB 1116.
No, the reason
And-
we're here is for a town hall. That happens to be one of the things, but
Yes,
yes.
but it's pretty major.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to affect all of us.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that you were talking about is transparency.
Sure.
What is SB 1184?
I have no idea. I didn't do anything with it. Don't know anything with it.
That's the Senate bill side with the
Okay.
exact bill
Okay.
that's gone through the Senate.
Okay, so as I
Okay.
understand it, and you guys can correct me because this is the neophyte talking. You have to, when I put in, when anybody puts in a document to be brought before legislature, there are 2 documents brought forward now. I'm just learning this. Again, when I told you I didn't know
But
what
you
I was
haven't
doing,
been talking about it. No one's been talking about it.
it's the same bill. It's no
Exactly,
different.
but yet it's on the Senate side of things. And I'll tell you something.
Everything has to be on both sides. When it comes in, every single bill, if you go online right now and look at all the different bills, all of them are listed in the Senate and in the House. All of them have to be. Because if it dies in the House, the Senate throws it out and never even looks at it.
But you know, we're talking about Lowell Russell.
Uh-huh.
On the House side, he says it's dead. The Senate side has gone, it was introduced on the same date. It was passed on first consideration,
Okay.
and it was passed on second consideration on the Senate side. So how is that dead?
As far as I know, which I don't know, I'll be direct with you and say I still don't understand all the goings and comings. But as far as I know, it requires both the House and the Senate to agree to
Well,
it.
it would eventually get there, but my whole point is no one's talking about getting to this Senate piece because it keeps going forward.
Okay.
And when they, yeah.
So I'm gonna go really out on a limb. Is there anybody here who thinks that this is a bill that should be put forward to help the community? Anybody got a hand? Okay, so at the end of the day, I don't understand the workings of the legislature. I'm just being, I wish I could tell you I'm a genius and get all that.
Well,
I
it's
don't.
amazing how you have talked to them.
I have spoken
yet-
to Lowell. That is my entire, and our lobbyists. I've spoken to those 2 people. That is the extent of my conversations with them because I don't understand it. I have given it to Lowell and said, Lowell, you do what you think is best. And if it's in the Senate and it's gone through 3 or 4 times, if the House kills it, it's killed. It doesn't matter what's gone on in the Senate. But if either way, I'm going to be blunt and say, if this doesn't pass because you're angry I made a mistake, then you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. And that's all I can say. Did I make a mistake? Absolutely. But this was always designed in the best interest of the community. It was never designed to be a tax or hurt you or make your house prices go weird or any of the other things that have been distributed throughout the land. It's just not. But you have to make that decision. If that's your decision, I'll
So
go with it.
under this bill, it basically says the transferee must pay the $2,500. It doesn't really get spelled out that way. A transferee.
look at it again. And here's the whole thing about this, is when you get this law changed,
Okay, hang on.
it not
Let the
only
guy
goes from the buyer's side, it can also go to the seller side, and we get double dipped. Yes,
No.
we can. If you get the law changed, that's exactly what'll happen.
Okay,
He'll
well, I
become-
don't, at this point, I'm not going to argue with you because I know what I was told, how the legally process works. And everything that everybody's saying, I agree with. It is not anything on the buyer. It is, on the seller. It is completely on the buyer. The buyer can never be double dipped. It can't be charged on a second fee. I'm assuming that's where you're going with
Well,
that.
because the law was changed, you'd be able to pass that a lot quicker
Why would I ever want to do that?
because you're changing the law.
Okay.
You're changing the law.
Okay, I don't have an answer to that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's the other thing is, number one is, we're involved with doing roads and sewer and these type of things.
Sure.
We have no business in that. We are paying property taxes. I understand.
Hang on. This
We
guy
are-
is right on the money. He's
We are
right on the
paying
money.
property taxes for our homes that we receive no benefit through the county. These things need to turn back into the county for roads and sewer and all of this so that everyone can absorb what we're doing on,
I could not agree with you more. It is
because
what I
we
have.
should not be in this business.
But I will tell you this, and those were almost my exact words when I talked to the board about this when they hired me. Those were my almost
work
exact
towards
words,
that.
and that is my goal. That is absolutely my
Then I
goal.
will cheer you on because we
there's
should
no,
not
we have no business being in this.
We have no business. We don't have the people that do this. They do at the county level.
Sure. Well, it's not even that. Let's just say we did have it. It's not a business a POA needs to be
No,
in. Ever.
ever.
Ever. I couldn't agree with you more.
Last comment. Thank you.
Hi, Chet.
Hey.
Hi. I'm Trudy Recaselva. I've been here since 2006, and I'd like to talk
Hang on, let's
about...
keep it down back there, guys, so people can be heard.
I've been here since 2006,
Yep.
and I'd like to talk about Tenassi.
Uh-huh.
But before I do, I'd like to congratulate you and the board for introducing this bill. We proposed it 5 years ago, or earlier, 2017, at a $5,000 buy-in. And if our previous general manager would have known how to do it like you do, we'd already have our 10 million in the reserve. But to talk about Tenassi, I put a lot of thought into this. As you know, I live in Tenassi. And I wrote it down so I don't misspeak or forget what I want to say. Said, I looked at this project like I would a home remodel. What do I really have that I can improve upon? What do I need? What would I like? And what is actually feasible? In my thoughts, I think if we separate the golf from the restaurant, it would save money and it would give us everything that we need. When you look at what we already own is the property from the Cooper purchase. We already own the Clayton trailer for the second time. We purchased the golf cart shed, and any work that would be done at the new property could 90% be done by our own people between Public Works and golf, as far as leveling the land, putting in the parking lot level. What it would do would now make Tenassi, with the same footprint of your 14,000 square feet, much bigger. The pro shop and office space would now be part of the restaurant. We could have larger kitchen and a larger bar. The entire ground floor, which before was cart storage, would now become a large room that could be divided for meeting spaces, parties, all with glass doors and windows facing our beautiful lake. We now would have a ground level outdoor patio. We could put chairs and tables. We could have Music Monday out there, all on the lake. We would also still have the balcony around the main floor on the restaurant. We could have a large cement patio for our musicians that would all be in the shade, in the shadow of the building. Now, we wouldn't need to move the 9th hole. We wouldn't need to take the most prized and valuable property on the lakefront and turn it into a stinking parking lot. and also a golf cart washing area right next to the restaurant on the lakefront with power washers. Let's see. We could take what we already have in our beautiful putting green and enhance it. We could put a sand trap there, and we can have a chipping area. They could use it for lessons, parties, and green space, and it would be saved, and we could save it and enhance it. And I'm sure that Lisa could come up with some great ideas on how to use it. We've always been a neighborhood that is environmentally responsible and also financially responsible. So possibly relooking at separating the two might give us everything that we need.
So thank you very much. So when we send out the next group, I'll put that in there again for you guys to do that, but I need you to understand a couple things about building. One of them is I can put a building 3 stories cheaper than I can take those apart and put it over somewhere else and put another roof on it. That's one of the reasons why originally, I don't know if you remember back that far, but we put out a couple different test questions, and one of them was to separate those two. And it was decided based on y'all's response that that was not something anybody wanted to do, that they wanted to keep them all together. Now, what she just said is all true. I'm not going to debate the definitions that she gave us. But in terms of cost, it is always cheaper to put everything under one roof than to try and spread it out and put it under multiple roofs. So that's just business fact. And whether that's the right thing for us, not going to debate that. That's something that needs to go out, and you guys can comment on it again. I'm okay with that answer because we haven't spent any money yet. All we're doing is collecting information and coming up with the designs. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Larry Foys. I moved here in May of this past year, and I live in Toqua. I have just a couple of quick things. The first one is if this bill gets passed at the $2,500 level, is it going to increase over time?
It has the potential. I don't want to hear yes because that's not a fact. The fact is that every year the board must vote on it. So the board theoretically can raise it every year to the percentage that the assessment goes up, or they can not do anything, or they can keep it at $2,500. And at any one point, they can choose not to do it anymore, period. So it's open to the board's decision on how they want to manage this. This is not dictating what we have to do. This is giving us the options of what we could do, and that's it.
So that's a perfect lead into my next question, which is kind of goes along with why we want to know how the board members vote. If the board one year decides, well, we want to raise it to $15,000, I'm pretty sure we're all going to want to know who voted for that so we know who not to vote for the next time.
So yeah, I don't think we'll ever be able to raise it to $15,000, but it's a valid point.
You know, this whole thing needs to be clarified for everybody. You need to tell us all about this bill and everything.
Okay, go ahead, Pandora.
Thank you, Mr. Pillsbury. Pandora Vreeland. I negotiated for a living, and everybody in this room probably has negotiated 100 automobiles, several homes, and what have you. I don't give up control easily. As a homeowner here, I had to give up control and say, because of rising expenses, I know my POA is going to be needing to raise my POA fees periodically. And it happened recently because of the high expenses. But I don't want to give up control over when it's time to sell my property and it's time to negotiate. Like you said, everybody's smart enough to know now that it's going to either come out of my wallet or their wallet, or we're going to split it. So I don't like the ability of the POA to be able to increase this potential transfer fee up to an amount as high as what they can increase my POA fee. I like things with caps on them. I like things capped. It helps me understand what my future looks like. It controls the POA from getting carried away with how much they feel they want to raise something. And so I feel very ill at ease to have two things in my future that can continue to go up. I'm smart enough to know they're never coming down.
So here's the answer I have for you, and it's a good answer. So you need to let the board know that, and you need to control the board, because the board, you're talking about, and I agree, by the way, I need to be clear. I agree with your point completely. I don't think that you're, hyperbole, whatever. It's correct. But I also know that you as a homeowner have the ability to stop the board from doing something. And if you don't buy into that, I hate to go back to it since it has nothing to do with this, but it's a perfect example. Let's talk about the gun deal. You stopped the board from doing that. And it was a valid thing. The board should have never done it. I can go into that forever, but that's not my point. My point is there should be nothing outside of those things that are unique to your CCNRs that the homeowners can't go to. It's back to assessments. If we wanted to have an assessment to fix some infrastructure that was broken and you didn't want to pay it, it would be your choice to go to the board and say, sorry, not having an assessment. And the board would go, okay, it won't get fixed. And those are the kinds of things, or they're going to have to say, well, we're going to drop this particular amenity or this particular service and take those funds and move it over here and do that. So you still have control of the board in terms of, and I'm saying this because I know the board members, and if the majority of you came to the board and said, look, you can't do this anymore. You can't keep raising this. We don't need it. The budget shows this. These numbers show that. There's no way why we should do that. They will listen.
Well, I would like that written in the bill.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, this bill is on hold now. It's not been withdrawn. Representative Russell said to me he would be speaking to Senator Swan, who has the companion bill in the Senate this week.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things in this bill, should the hold be removed from it, would go forward that I believe present us with future problems, such as the unrestrained cap, no restraining on this cap of how high it can go, and other matters like that. And I think everybody here is also aware that your property, my property, becomes less attractive with more financial burden on it to a buyer.
So my only answer to that is Wind River and Rarity Bay, which both have significantly larger numbers than we are talking about, are
Right.
still selling houses like a house of fire. So I don't sure that I don't want to argue with you, but to say that this will deter people from buying, there's no facts that I can go to say you're right.
There's a tipping point.
Oh, I don't disagree that you can make it so horrible. I mean, the Villages charges $20,000.
Right. Well, anyway, thank you.
No,
Those are
more.
my
It's a
comments,
valid
and
point.
I'll put
Valid
them in
point.
writing.
Hi, my name's Joe McCall, and my wife and I purchased our home in Mialaquo in 2015. And a couple of things. First, I'd like to really congratulate you for standing up and say, yeah, the how part was on me, and then going back, you also addressed one of the other hot topics of the gun rights things was really never should have happened. And I guess the third comment in that, just in general, is I printed out a copy of House Bill 1116, and the things that you're saying don't really line up well with that.
Okay.
It says, this bill requires the following. 1, for transfer of real property located within a community governed by a nonprofit association, the transferee must pay a fee. There is no option. It becomes law, at least according to my reading, which it seems
Okay, keep
pretty
going.
Simple.
Keep going, yep, I can understand why
Number
you would have
2,
that.
the association must increase the fee. So, and then further down, the question of what does it apply to? The fee obligation is intended to run with the land and apply to all future transfers of real property located within the community. So I guess, what you said.
I want you to stop right there for a second.
Okay.
Because you're cherry picking. I want you to go to the back page and read the last paragraph where it talks about what the board's requirements are.
This is what's on the state website.
Okay, well,
I
there
don't
should
have
be
that.
2 pages, and the back page says, regardless of everything that was said previous, the board must agree to it, or it doesn't go anywhere. It dies.
Okay, well, that
So-
was not on the state website.
Well, then all I can do is apologize, because I
Okay.
know that's in there because it was deliberately put in there.
Okay, well, then I didn't see it on the state website,
Huh?
but I
Oh,
guess.
you must be reading the summary then, and I apologize for that.
All right, so I guess the issue I have is really the how. And what you said, you basically took the onus because you didn't know. Well, I can say there's one person in the meetings that you're at who's supposed to make sure that never happens to you, and that's the attorney.
Correct.
He
And
didn't do it.
So here's the thing that I want to say I didn't know. I'm not talking about the bill. I knew the bill because I read it ad nauseum. But in terms of how the bill moves through legislation, that's the part where I'm being honest and say I do not know how it went. And I'm just figuring out, as an example, the question of the Senate. I didn't realize that when you put it in, it goes to both at the same time. I thought it had to go through one, and then it gets moved over to the other. That's not the way it works.
Number 2 for the attorney, the Open Meetings Act.
Yep.
And number 3, I guess he was the guy who apparently wrote the legislation which caused the uproar that resulted in double the turnout. So I think you need to, I appreciate you took the blame. Maybe you took more than you needed to. Maybe you need to share it with him.
Understood. Oops, somebody lost their name tag here.
Right here on the floor.
Joe McCall?
No, he just left.
Joe, you dropped your name tag, brother.
Hi, Chet. My name is Chuck Everett. We bought in 2018. And I will say this, God bless you. They couldn't pay me enough to take your job.
Why does everybody say that? Gosh, it concerns me.
Anyway, I do want to say this. Back when I was much younger and much more foolish, I had a condo in a condo complex that did not pay attention to a reserve fund. And in a 6-month period, we had $100 a month special assessment for water and sewer. We had a storm come through and they added another $150 a month for roof replacements because the damage that was done as a result of the storm. So regardless of how it gets funded, I am all for making sure that our reserve funds are sufficient to handle the day-to-day and the
Absolutely.
long-term infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Okay? Okay. My question is, and in the event that this House bill just dies, okay, have you given any other thought to how you're going to raise funds to maintain the reserve account?
Absolutely. And so there's 2 or 3 things that I need to say right now. You hired me to do a job. And even though this bill may die, Chet's going to be right back in there duking away to try and get it in next year. Because we've got to find ways legally to be able to fund without killing the homeowners who live here and pay the dues already. And I'm going to look at commercializing. Now, when I say this, everybody thinks we're going to become a municipality. That's not what I mean. We can't, I need to rephrase that. We can do it. It's just stupid if we do it because it's going to cost us way more money. So it is completely doable. It's just not the good thing and the right thing to do. So moving on, I want to find a way to have income coming into the community that is from the commercial side, so we're not limited by our you can't make that much money, Chet, rule, and fund the POA from that. Are one way. The other way is exactly what the gentleman suggested earlier, is we get rid of water and sewer and roads. And those are my 2 choices, because ultimately that's all I got. And those are going to be the killers. I mean, in terms of reserves, circling back a little bit to that, 60% of the reserve was roads, water, and sewer. So think about how much I could reduce our needs by getting rid of those 3. Right now I don't know how I can do that, but that's the goal. That's the goal.
So, thank you.
You bet.
Good afternoon. My name's Linda Fall, and I'm my husband and I are property owners here in Tellico Village. And just like everybody else here, probably in this room, everyone are property owners. And we all share equally in the responsibility of making sure that we have reserves.
Correct.
We can't, what this bill and the $2,500 entrance fee is basically passing our responsibility as homeowners who have been homeowners for years on to someone else. Now, there are young people that are moving in, have already moved into Tellico Village, love to have them. They may own their homes for another 20 years. There are people such as my husband and I who are in our 70s. We may only own the home for another 5 years.
Sure.
Those who are not going to be actively selling their homes for years will not face the possibility, and I really do believe, because I came from a state that had a lot of, and I understand it was an exit tax. Not every community had it. It was very unpopular.
For a lot of reasons.
And people, when they were looking to buy a house, it was the Chicagoland area, and there were other communities that did not have this exit tax, that, or fee, whatever you want to call it. And homes were more attractive in the communities that did not have it. I work for local government, and I had the misfortune of having as part of my responsibility, collecting for special assessments. They're incredibly unpopular. Nobody wants them. However, I have to say that if we need money, we need to consider, do we really want only some people to deal with this issue that are going to sell their house? And is it really fair to pass your responsibility on to another generation or potential buyers?
That's one way of looking at it.
That's just,
Yeah.
it is.
It
It's
is.
a way
That's
of
one way of
looking at it. And, I mean, I'm not going to argue with anybody here because it almost seems like it's a moot point. But think about it. We need to do something. And as the last gentleman asked, what are our options if this isn't even going to be an option for us? Thank you.
Sure.
Chad, thank you for joining us. This meeting has been very informative and it's much needed.
I hope
My
so.
name is Rich Ganch. I'm a recent, my wife and I are recent residents now of Tokwa, and we're Chicago refugees. The question I have, is there any consideration being given towards developing a police or security force for the community? There's been some discussions on the side in innuendo, so just like to clarify that. Thank you.
So as far as I know, there have been no discussions about that. However, it is one of the, if it's brought up, I realize that it is one of the items we would have to have if we wanted to become a municipality. We would have to have our own police force. And so I don't know where that's coming from. I've not brought it up. I haven't brought it up for discussion. Now, I will say that my sister community over here, Fairfield Glade, I will say it, they have their own police force. They don't have a fire department like we do, but they have their own police force, and they're paying for it, and they're on the payroll. So I don't know what that, I've not seen that as in our best interest, but that doesn't mean that it's not.
Kevin Kelly, 2018, live in Chota. Two-part question. One, with HB 1116, it is, 4. If that were to move forward, where would we go from here? Okay, so right now Lowell has it on pause.
Yep.
So it sounds like the majority of people, based on the hand claps, were more in favor of doing something along those lines.
Yes.
So where would we go from here? Part 2 is the way the legislation is written, from my understanding, it was more or less written by the attorney, the POA attorney.
It was a collaborative writing because the attorney wrote the original down, but when it went to Nashville, it was rewritten and addressed by the attorneys for the legislator. Because they were saying that language ain't gonna work, you gotta do this, or this is not the right term you need to use, you have to do that.
Yeah, because a lot of people have real heartburn with that attorney, because again, past history going back to the gun thing.
Understood.
He put us in a position where had that rule gone into effect, he could have bankrupted the village and the POA and the homeowners because of the way he wrote that. He was unaware of the cutout, and if that had ever gone through, we'd have all been screwed, so I don't have a lot of faith in our current attorney.
So, that being said, I want to go back to how this is going to happen. First of all, I think, I don't have any warm and fuzzy the bill's going through, because it appears that everybody has called Lowell and upset him and made him feel like he's the village idiot and he should have never done this and blah, blah, blah. And so, for his own political reasons, he's probably going to kill it. And it just means I got to go at it again. Now, I may be wrong. He may surprise me and put it through, and it may go through. So let's go with your theory. It goes through. So the next thing is going to happen is it's going to come to the board, and it's going to be discussed, and I'll go on record now of saying in an open board meeting, and how they're going to handle this bill now. What will be their choices? And so for 2024, they're going to have to make the decisions that we talked about earlier. They're going to have to talk about, are we going to do it, period? Okay, if we are, then we know that we can only charge, and this is the other part that I guess nobody reads this part, but it says up to $2,500. It doesn't say $2,500. Now, in the summary, there was a lot of language used there that is not in that bill, and I apologize. I didn't write the summary. In fact, I had zero control over the summary that was written by somebody in Nashville. So, that being said, once they've made that decision, then they have to put the caveats around it and the things we've talked about. Number one, we're not going to charge people, and this is the board's already made this decision either way. And to Lowell's credit, this was one of the things he required. Got to stay in my box, sorry. He required is that we never charge this fee to a land transfer of either death or trustees. And so that would be the second vote. Then the third vote would be, are we going to charge it against who? Again, back to the other earlier questions, are we going to charge people who buy just a lot for $6,000? Are we going to charge them $2,500 for that? That's a question that has to be answered. Are we going to charge somebody who buys a house somewhere else in the village again? That's an answer they're going to have to come up with. So those are all questions that would have to be done and approved moving forward. And they'd have to be approved before 2024, because that's when it would go into act. So all of those things, if everything went wonderfully, those things would have to happen as well. Sir.
How's it? Thank you for coming on over and talking to all these folks. Name's Ananda. I'm from Kauai, my small kind paradise. You guys think this is paradise, and I understand that, and I can appreciate that. But
Kauai is paradise, brother.
I'm on North Shore Kauai. But from what I understand, I'm pretty much ignorant about all this kind, is that you guys had a fire at a restaurant, and you underinsured it?
No, that's not
You just want to double the size of it?
I just want it, because the problem was that it was too small in the first place. And so when it burnt down, we have the opportunity to do something about it. We can build it back the same way it was, or we can build bigger to accommodate the needs of the community.
You know, is that kind of like something like this right here, this place?
Similar, but not.
Okay, because I've never been there. My mom bought over Kahiti. I guess we're deep country Kahiti. Is Kahiti a part of this stuff too?
Oh, absolutely, brother.
Okay, because I'm like, you know, like one island over in Kahiti, because everyone like stays here in the village or something.
Yeah, no.
I guess the Kahiti's a little bit more the poor people.
Yeah, one
maybe.
POA, brother.
Okay, so we're the deep country poor people over in Kahiti.
Not so much.
And all I'm hearing is that you guys have poor management, first of all.
Sure.
Because you're not making any money on your restaurant. Your golf course is coming out junk. Everybody's in line. So
well, I mean, I want to know what you mean by golf course coming out junk, because
I only know what you're telling me is you got people,
happens to be the best golf course in this area.
Over here where your kind is, you're telling me people are in line constantly.
Sure.
You're telling me the restaurant they can't get in and so
I
on.
didn't say
So
that.
You said there's lines in the restaurants.
We're talking about Tanasi, brother.
Yeah.
Tanasi only. We're
Yeah.
not talking about all the rest
I'm
of the.
talking about Tanasi.
Yeah, right. When that
So
was up,
I'm
that
just
was what I'm
seeing-
told.
All I'm hearing, forgive me, don't know, never been. I've never been to these places. I'm
Yeah.
paying on property in Kahiti and never been to your guys' stuff.
Sure.
So I'm just like, I'm getting the same bill that I'm
Everybody
not
else is,
enjoying
that's
your
right.
kind either. So I'm just seeing poor management is all I'm seeing. I appreciate you busting out saying, hey, it's my fault. Again, there's no fixing it. You screwed up on your little deal with whatever you did with the bill, right?
Probably so.
I mean, sorry, nutshell, it is what it is, and no one can do nothing about it, correct?
I'm sorry?
No one can do nothing about it now, right?
Oh, no, we can. Sure, we can. We can turn it around or we can drop it. I mean, everything is still in play as we are standing here having this conversation.
Okay.
After this meeting, maybe.
Well, my
maybe
problem
not.
is that I grew up in Kauai 36 years, and I lived in your guys' little world. We call it Princeville, and your little world is like the Princeville of Kauai, or whatever. It's the high-end place where all the tourists come and move to. And as far as I can see, a bunch of you are just tourists around here from other states, coming over here wanting to retire in Tennessee. Am I right, most of you, from other states? No?
Or Kauai.
Or whatever kind. I don't know why I'm here. But I came here to hang out with my mom. But anyways, I just feel that you guys are opening up a can of worms to letting this bill go, kind of an open-end can of worms. Once he gets to go, or the board gets to go, and keep raising the prices, it's going to bite you in the rear end sometime. It really is. It doesn't stop. And once your guys, whatever, $2,500 is gone, $10,000 is gone, that's all pal, you're done building. Where does it go from there? So just check yourselves before you want to price, like the other guy said, out of your own living space. And the kids, your grandkids, whatever, they can't afford it either. I grew up there. I watched it all happen. And you guys might be pricing yourself out of your own place that you're here right now. A lot of you might be retired. You might be fixed income. Maybe plenty of you got millions. It doesn't really matter. The point is you could price yourself out of your own paradise right here. So I just want you guys to think about that ahead of time. By giving them the law to do whatever's, it could bite you in the rear end.
Roger that. So I understand exactly what he's talking about because I used to work at Silver Falls Ranch on Kauai up in Princeville.
I painted that house.
So I've
That guy's mean.
yes, he is. German fella. Yeah, he's an interesting fella.
German guy.
Anyway, but Kauai is a beautiful place. But he's right. There's a lot of jokes on the local kind who talk about what happens there and how they've been priced out. Go ahead. Sorry.
Chet, my name is Larry Rolab. I'm over at Tanasi.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you expect me to talk about Tanasi. I won't repeat it. We've already had that discussion. But what I'd like to say to you is, number one, I appreciate you taking all the bullets on this issue because I don't think it's you. I think it's the board. You didn't go over there by yourself. The board sent you over there. The board is the one that is responsible for that screw up, not you. You follow direction. You're a paid employee. So, as I said, it's nice for you to take the criticism and take the bullets for the board. Number one. Number two is when you were talking about the vote of the board and the fact that the vote won't change after they take the vote, you're exactly correct. But we are the ones that elect the board, and we're the ones that support the board, and we should know how the board votes in making a decision in the future of whether we want to re-vote for those board members or not.
Okay.
That's the point.
Well, as I told you, I'll make that change from the next board meeting minutes. Not a problem.
Number three, I'm relatively new to the community, and I believe in the past they talked about this before, but everybody talks about the terrible traffic on 444 and how dangerous it is. I also know that there's been some discussion in the past about linking the three communities in Tellico Village together with a cart path, and it's been too expensive in the past. I'd like to people think about that and see how there's a way that people can go from one village to the other without going on 444.
I'm sure there's other ways of doing it, that's for sure. It's just a matter of whether we want to afford to or not.
That's correct. It's just
Yep.
an amenity or an improvement or whatever you want to call it.
Sure. No, I agree.
But
I
that's
mean,
one of the issues that I'd like to have.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll put that on the list for sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Fall. I live in the Coyote areas. And since you're looking for money, one of the ways that communities that I've been in before generated money for things like infrastructure and repairs was by billing the contractors. And the contractors had to come up with a certain amount of money in order to build a home. Because the community figured contractor comes in or a developer puts in 100 homes, means that you're going to have to increase your school size, you're going to have more parks, maybe a branch library. There are a whole lot of other things that need to be done as the community grows. So they felt that since the builders who were making a handsome profit on the homes that they were putting in, they felt that they should be contributing to that. And it wasn't $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, but it was a fee that they were charged. I don't know if you've looked into that or if you're currently even doing it, but it would be a consideration. Thank you.
You bet.
My name is Nancy Kessler, and my husband and I own property in the neighborhood.
Yes.
If this bill is resurrected,
Yes.
I have a question. When you were analyzing it, did you do a sort of a break-even analysis? For example, if I sat back and said, I don't wish to sell my property for 25 years, there's a lot of sales that go on every month in this village dumping in the $2,500
Correct.
over and over and over again.
Correct.
If I don't plan on selling my house for 25 years, I'd be foolish not to be for it. Have you done an analysis of if someone wants to sell January of 24, they'd be against it? How long is the break even on the churning of the money versus the transactional fee?
So basically, what we based this on was the number of homes that are currently being sold. I mean, I could go back a couple years when it was being sold like crazy, and no, we tried to keep that. What has been the mean throughout the years? And then we said, okay, if we charge $2,500, how much is that going to bring in? Because that includes all the homes that are resales, right? And
yes.
so ultimately, that will be the total number of homes sold because it will all be resales, right? It's going to sell out sooner or later.
Right.
So that churn is going to bring in about somewhere around $1 million a year. So if at $1 million a year, we could fund our reserves, keeping in mind, and I'm going to throw out a number that has no bearing. It's just a wild ass guess on my part, to use a bad expression. And that is, if we decide we're going to put a cap on our reserves at 30 million, and that's not been decided, and that's definitely not what the reserve study says, but let's just say we put that cap at 30 million. Once we hit that, why would we want it? I mean, seriously, we're not in this for money. So if we've hit our cap, what's the point? That's why we put in there every year the board has to approve it. It's not in perpetuity. It's not forever.
So in your analysis, you didn't come and say someone who's going to sell in 20 years does want it, someone who's going to sell in 2 years doesn't want it. Have you come to the conclusion of where it is, where someone would really be happy, the analysis, the break even?
Currently, it is my assumption that anytime I come to you and tell you that I'm getting money from somewhere, you aren't going to like it. And it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, the analysis is there is no breaking point. There is going to be a group of people who always think that I'm in their pocket. I love terms like money grab. For what? It's your money. I don't know how I'm grabbing it, but it's your money still.
So there's not been a statistical analysis. I mean, I'm looking at.
Well, from a statistical point, we're estimating that we're going to be selling between 300 and 400 houses a year, one way or another, either building or resales. And so if you take that number and multiply it, that's not going up now. That's sticking with $2,500. That's all we've looked at. Because theoretically, there should be an end. There should be a cap, as some of the other people brought up. It's not something we need to do. We don't need a way of constantly take your money and put it back in, unless there's a problem. And so I'm trying to solve a problem. If that problem goes away, then it's not necessary. And that was the reason why we designed the bill to be cut off. It's not in perpetuity, because a lot of bills are written that once it's done, you got to go find another bill to stop it. And that's what I was trying to keep from getting into, is that this bill has the ability to just unplug, period.
I guess if I said, if I'm going to hold my property for 20 years and you're saying you're getting $1 million every year, I'm getting the benefit over the course of 20 years of $20 million.
Sure, that's right.
But if I was selling
But you're also paying your dues, which are also funding those reserves.
Right, but I'm getting $20 million over 20 years to my benefit.
To the entire association's benefit, that is
Right.
correct. Yeah, of course.
That's 20 years, but no one, if you're going to sell it in a year, you're getting none. You have not come up with the statistics of the break-even point. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Hi, my name is David Taylor, live in the Mialakwa neighborhood. Came last December, and I can top you all on being refugees, California, Illinois. No, I came from D.C.
Oh, Lord. God bless you.
I wasn't going to say anything, but two things occurred to me. I don't think there's unanimity about this, but having listened to all this discussion, and heaven help me, read next door, I tend to think this fee is a good idea, and I think those of us who think that ought to let Representative Russell know it. I think there's a lot of us, and it would sort of take him off a hook. You know, he got an initial impression we were all for this bill, and I think right now he probably has an impression we're all against it. It'd be better if he had the real picture. So I'm going to send him an email, and I would suggest other people who agree do that too. But the other point I wanted to make is I tend to agree with the gentleman who got up a few minutes ago and said, Chet, kudos to you for taking the bullets here, but ultimately they belong to the board. And you're saying there's a plan to have regular town halls like this. I'd like to see when there's a town hall, the board is sitting up here.
So one of the things that I would like to do, and I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
it's
I wanted to
okay.
be sure that I wanted to be sure that this got in there.
You finish, but the one thing I was going to add to it is, first of all, I think they ought to do that in the name of transparency, but in fact, I think it would help them to hear us. It's a two-way street.
I don't disagree.
So
And there are quite a
I
few
would
board
hope there's a
members
way
here
to do
today.
that.
Yeah, there's quite a few board members here today. So ultimately, in one of my town, I'd love to tell you that I love bogarting all the hometown or all the town halls, but I can't. So one of the things that we're going to do in our monthly meetings is some of them are going to have a roundtable with the board here, where I will moderate and you can ask questions from the board. I think that's important that happens. I know that we're going to have some that will include local representatives like the mayors from both counties, Monroe and Loudoun County, and let you ask questions of those gentlemen, and possibly have council members and other people who are here to give you that access without having to go to a council meeting and ask those questions. Because I think it's important that you have the ability to ask anybody a question. I can't guarantee you they're going to give you the answer you want, but I can guarantee you they'll give you an answer. So under those conditions, that will allow you to have those kinds of conversations and have the board a part of it. And I want to correct one more thing. Even though I appreciate you guys saying what you're saying about the board, you need to understand that it is my job, and I've been tasked by the board to do this job, to come up with ways that we can begin to afford to manage our infrastructure, or I have to come up with a way to get rid of the infrastructure. That's my job. That's not the board's job. That's what they hired me to do. And so when I say I made that decision, I made that decision. Did the board agree with it? Yes, absolutely, because I don't work in a vacuum. They would have to agree with it for me to carry it forward. But I am responsible. Regrettably, CEO at the end of my name means I'm responsible, period. And I'm not going to play it otherwise. So I appreciate that you think that the board is responsible, and maybe they should have told me no if that's your point. Okay, I kind of get that. But this was my decision, is trying to find a way that other associations normally do to be able to bring in money, period. Go ahead.
My name is Bob Thompson. The House bill, even with the $2,500, if you're buying a house that's worth $1 million, $2,500 is not really that big a deal. The problem I see with it is that it's a psychological thing that says, I'm coming from California where they make me pay to leave. Now I'm going to have to, if I go to Tellico Village, I have to pay to go in. That may turn some people off. I know it turned us off with Rarity Bay. Just a comment.
Sure.
Let's see.
And if we were the only ones doing it, I would agree with you.
Yeah. Well, it's not everybody that does it, but they may just go and keep looking for one that doesn't. That's my only
No,
point.
that's fair. That's fair.
Okay. A strange suggestion. Don't rebuild Tenasseee right now. Everything is outrageously high and inflated in building. Wait a year and maybe it'll come down. There may be something that will happen, like a recession, where things will get cheaper. That's just another comment. Use as much steel in the building as you possibly can and as little wood. Let's see. Can we rewrite the covenants?
Okay, now you're really into entertainment. So, the answer to that question is, of course you can, if I can get 71% of you to agree on it, and all 71% say yes, I can do any of that. Now, anybody want to guess what the odds are of me getting 71% of you to all vote yes? Zero. That's my point. So, it's a fair question. I ask it all the time, and I bring it up to legislators. Why don't they just say you can't change them? Why can't they just put that in there instead of saying, well, it'll take 60 or 71 of your, or 71% of yours to vote yes? Well, I guess they're trying to give me hope, but so far it's never happened, so I don't have much hope.
Okay. Where else? Has there been a breakdown of what each amenity, let's say, or facility is costing and what it will take to make it sustainable?
Sure, and that's back to whoever asked me about the cost analysis part. Yes, the buildings are broken down into three, well, maybe more than three, but three categories off the top of my head. One of them is, what does it cost to replace it? And the reason I don't ask what it cost us to build it, because as an example, we didn't build this building. In fact, this building was given to us. And Tenasseee was given to us. So there's no money out the door. It's just all insurance money coming in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that value, I don't have an answer for. And then what we are paying on a monthly basis to maintain those are tracked every month.
Okay.
So we know what it's costing us for the power, maintenance, any of those kinds of things. All of those things are being tracked. And so ultimately, we can tell you what this building is costing us. Now, if we were to tear it down and rebuild it, that's part of what the reserve study is supposed to do for us. What happens if this building goes to ground? They're going to evaluate under current costs what it would cost us to put it back. And interestingly enough, the reserve study said that Tenasseee would cost around $3.9 million to put back. Well, I think it was more like closer to 4, but it was really close to what the builder said it would cost us to do it. So I was encouraged a little bit, at least, by that. But those are all the things that we're having to evaluate all the time.
Last one.
Sure.
There are, on the website, there are 3 separate plans for Tenasseee, I believe, for the area.
Sure, there are 3 different possible designs, and most of
Yes.
those are dealing with everybody's favorite subject who live in Tenasseee, the parking lots.
And before the actual decision is made,
yes,
of anything was going to be done, will there be a continuation of determining the cost of a separate building not just, it's gonna cost this much to do the one.
So what I'm gonna do is once we figure out what it's actually really, not just Chet's guess, but what the engineers and architects tell us it's really gonna cost, then we will come back to you and say, here's what it's really gonna cost. Now, if I wanna throw up another building, here's what it's really gonna cost. And let you see the difference so you understand where that's coming from. And, you know, there are people who think we shouldn't do anything. We should just use the new cart rack and use the new temporary building that's going in and never do anything to Tenassi. Now, the reality of it is you can't do that, number one, because it's an amenity that everybody uses and needs. But number two, it looks terrible now. I'm sorry, I'll say it out loud. It looks terrible now, and I can't leave it that way.
Yeah.
It's just bad. So I hope that answered your question, sort of.
Kinda. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks. This gentleman will be the last one because it's 6 o'clock and I got a hard stop at 6. They're already giving me the cut it off.
Thank you, Chet. Jim Staling, been here 26 years, so I've seen a lot of things come and go. And I do have to say that Telco Village has done an excellent job over the last 26 years that I've been here. And I welcome you to be part of this here.
Thank you.
The only question I have, it's actually a request. The last meeting that we had, board meeting, there was a question brought about constructability for the Tenassi Clubhouse. Who from a construction background is actually part of the planning that's going on today for the future? Now, we talk about contractors coming in
Yes.
August or October, but that's after the...
No, we're moved that number up. They're coming in this month.
Oh, awesome. Okay, then as long as we have constructors that actually build things, I was in the business for 43 years. Constructability has got to be part of the people building it, so we all understand that we did it correct from the design all the way through. That's
So
my only-
one of the things we're doing, I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot to mention it. One of the things we're doing is we're bringing in a contractor. We're also bringing in at least one member of every committee that has anything to do with money or finance or PSAC or any of those people, and bringing them in to that group so they understand exactly what we're doing and they're a part of that decision. So we're broadening the scope of the people involved so that they can have their input. What I strongly suggest is, and we'll publish those people, that if you have a concern, an idea, a plan, is go to these folks and let them know what your plan is so they can bring it to us. And, you know, I always struggle with this thing, well, what do the majority want? Well, frankly, I don't know how many we had here, probably 300 people today. You're still percentage-wise not even close to a majority.
Correct.
And so I need more input. I need more comments from the silent, what I refer to as the silent majority, is that I know they don't care because they say, they're taking care of that, I don't care. Maybe that's true. But I really, for me to be able to feel comfortable that I'm not managing to the 20, I'm managing to the 6,000, I need more people.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. All of you who hung in there for the whole thing. There'll be another one next month.